I can see from all the comments that I get that you guys are in buying mode. Questions like, what's the best camera for video? What's the best lens for video? What camera should I buy? Or, I have too much money laying around and I just want to buy something. What should I buy? It's wild, but that's okay. And I want to help you because that's what I do. I help people without wanting anything in return. I'm like the Jesus of YouTube. Okay, look, I've already made variations of this video in the past, and it always comes down to the same thing. I always say the same thing. There is no best camera or best lens, because if there would be, then every professional would use exactly the same camera and lens, right? So the best camera doesn't exist. What camera you should buy depends on so many different factors. And also, if you buy a camera these days, any camera, it's gonna be a good camera. The problem is that if you buy a random camera, it might be the wrong camera for you. Still a good camera, but the wrong camera. And that's what makes it so tricky to make these camera and lens recommendation videos, because I don't know you, I don't know what you need in a camera. But I do know myself, obviously, most of the time. So what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm gonna list all the things, all the features, all the specifications that I would be looking at if I were to buy a new camera today, based on all the things that I've learned and know. I've been doing this professionally now for a few years, and to give you an idea, I make videos for YouTube, I do some vlogging, and I create content and videos for clients, for brands, for companies. Just to give you some context. Okay, so here are some basic things that I think you should be paying attention to if you're planning to buy a new camera. And let's just start with the big question, APS-C or full frame? It's a never-ending discussion, and I don't really want to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but here's the thing. The reason why a lot of professionals shoot full frame is not just because of that bigger sensor. It's also because camera manufacturers throw more money at the development of full frame cameras. And so full frame cameras usually get the features that professionals need, like a strong magnesium body and weather sealing, professional audio features and HDMI ports, high frame rates. But if you're buying a camera to make videos of your family or with your friends, or videos like this, just talking to the camera and that's it, then you don't really need a full frame camera. It's like buying a Ferrari. You're just showing off an expensive toy. And sure, it's fun to have one, but a Ferrari is not better at bringing you to the supermarket than, let's say, a Ford Focus. It's just louder, more expensive, and faster. And you can't even go that fast in most countries because there are speed limits. But if you're a professional race car driver and you use that car for professional racing, well, then the Ferrari is obviously the better choice. Bottom line is, most people don't need a full frame camera. They won't use it to its full potential, and so it's a waste of money. And a lot of people also forget that there are reasons to go for an APS-C camera specifically. Like I said, first of all, a lot cheaper, but they're also lighter and smaller, and the lenses are lighter and smaller, so if you need a camera for hiking in the mountains and you don't want to add extra bulk and weight to your backpack, go for an APS-C camera, of course. Just be honest with yourself. Do you really need a full frame camera, or do you just want one, like you want a Ferrari? And look, there's nothing wrong with wanting a Ferrari and even buying a Ferrari, but don't tell me that you need a Ferrari to go to the supermarket. Know what I mean? That doesn't make sense at all. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about cars now because this video is about cameras. I'm sorry. And I don't want to turn this video into a rant, even though it's probably already too late. Anyway, there is a specification that I find super important, and it's why I always end up looking at full frame cameras. Low light, ISO. Even though there are APS-C cameras that will give you excellent results in low light, but if you want the absolute best low light performance in extreme low light, go full frame. But again, just ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Are you really gonna shoot in low lights all the time? Or is it just once or twice a year? And you just want to be able to say to your friends, hey look, I have the low light king of cameras and I need it because I shoot on cloudy days. Cloudy days are not low light, okay? Damn, I keep going into rant mode. Look, on my Sony a7S III for example, I can set the ISO to 12,800 and it looks amazing, it looks clean. But I actually use that setting all the time. Whenever I'm shooting outside of the studio, it's usually in low light. Well, not usually, but a lot of the time. I love shooting after sunset. I love shooting indoors without additional lighting. So, you know, I actually need that setting. But if you're planning to make videos in a studio all the time, then you don't need a low light king. What you need is good lights. So spend money on good lights instead, because low light performance comes with a price tag. And I know that some of you are thinking now, why don't you just buy a 1.2 lens and shoot wide open whenever you're shooting in low light? But that's the thing, I don't want to shoot wide open all the time because, you know, the depth of field is super narrow, it's difficult to focus, it doesn't always look that good. So I don't want to shoot wide open all the time. There's something about being able to shoot comfortably at f3.5 or 4.5 in low light. You know what I mean? Okay, 4K. Do you really need 4K? Well, the thing is, pretty much every new camera these days can shoot in 4K, and I do have clients who specifically ask for 4K, so I need 4K for my work. But the problem is, storage-wise, for example, 4K is a big difference compared to 1080 files. And also editing 4K. If you want to add some motion graphics and color grading, special effects, you're gonna need a computer that can handle that. I had to buy a new computer because my old MacBook, well, my 2018 MacBook Pro couldn't handle it. So keep that in mind. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to shoot in 4K. It just depends on what the purpose of the video is. Now, if you do want to shoot in 4K, then you have to pay attention to a few things when you're buying a camera. For example, does it have good autofocus in 4K? Because my Canon M50, for example, in 4K, the autofocus is poop. And also, what frame rates are supported whenever you switch to 4K. Cheaper cameras, a lot of times they only support 25 or 30 frames per second and no 60 frames per second in 4K. So if you want 4K at high frame rates, you're gonna have to look at more expensive cameras. And also, sometimes 4K has a crop, which is also pretty annoying, because then it doesn't use the full sensor and your lens, your 50mm, all of a sudden becomes a 75mm and annoying. Look, for client work, I need 4K 60. That's what I use most of the time when I shoot videos for clients. 120? Not really a must in my opinion. And for non-client work, well, it's nice to have at least good autofocus when you're shooting in 4K. So, you know, there you go. Finding a camera that shoots 4K is not the problem, but keep in mind that 4K might have limitations. And then we have the flip out screen, and you might think it's stupid, but it's one of those things, once you get used to it, you can't go back. If you're gonna make videos of yourself, if you're gonna film yourself, make sure there's a flip out screen. I use it all the time. But of course, if you're never gonna film yourself, you don't really need a flip out screen that turns this way. So again, something for you to decide. Do you need that or not? Okay, and then we have log profiles. Usually the more expensive cameras also support log profiles. And a log profile is a flat color profile. It looks like this, but then you have to somehow color grade it to make it look like this. Log profiles also will give you more dynamic range, so it'll be easier to keep detail in both the highlights and the shadows, but it'll add extra steps to your workflow. And you also have to learn how to work with those log profiles and learn how to expose them. It'll take a while. And you know, it's not like using a standard color profile looks bad or is bad. If you're a complete beginner, then don't focus on log profiles too much. Focus on the basics first. Again, it's a matter of deciding if it's something that you need. I mean, if you really want to learn how to color grade, if that's something you definitely want to learn, then you're gonna need log profiles. But if you want to make, again, videos like this, just talking to the camera and that's it, you don't really need log profiles. Just use a standard profile and done. It's gonna be a lot faster and easier. I love color grading, but it was a process. It took me like at least a year to really get the hang of it. And I know a lot of people who don't want to be bothered with extra work. So there you go. And then a short word about audio, HDMI ports, USB ports. It's something that's often overlooked. It's also a mistake I made when I bought my first camera for video. Because like I said, usually the full frame cameras get more options, more features for professional audio and professional HDMI ports. Maybe you don't need them, and that's fine, but a lot of people, when they go to a store to buy a camera, What they're looking at is megapixels and frame rates and those things. And they don't think about audio or USB ports. And then a few months later, they want to connect something to their camera, and then they find out it doesn't have that connection, and you have to find a solution, and annoying. So keep that in mind. And then finally, we have lenses. What lenses should you buy? Especially if you're a beginner. Well, I'm a prime lover. It sounds really weird. I'm a prime lover. No, I like primes. I like prime lenses. But if you're a beginner, prime lenses, it's maybe not the ideal choice. If you do want a prime lens specifically, I would say go for a 35mm. But like I said, not the ideal choice for a beginner. I would go for the standard zoom lens, a 15-45 on an APS-C camera and the classic 24-70 on a full frame camera. And you're good to go. Or maybe do a combination of a standard zoom, like those two, and a fast prime, like a 35 1.8 for example, or maybe 1.4 even. If you're gonna buy an APS-C camera that's not super capable in low light, well, that fast prime is gonna help you in low light. Okay, rant is over. I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'll gladly answer them. I mean, I try to answer all of them. It's not possible sometimes. But just drop your questions in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Jesus of YouTube, out.